Hi, everybody. David Nour back with you for another episode of our Intelligent Growth with my partner, Jenn Cordz. Hello, Jenn.
Hi, Nour. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. For our audience, we're trying something a little different. We are live on YouTube, and we will put links to this on the various social platforms. We're trying to consolidate kind of different places that people go, and but we encourage you to mark your calendar Tuesdays at noon Eastern. We share a new episode, and we also repurpose these things into our podcast. So wherever you consume podcasts, if you just search for Intelligent Growth, you'll see updates on an ongoing basis. Today's episode is focused on this idea of we believe micro events can be an enormous enabler, a strategic enabler of your go-to-market strategy. As we'll talk about, most organizations are pretty good at putting on big events, 500 people, 1,000 people, big conference. I've spoken at a 25,000 person event in Vegas. Big events. Who doesn't want to go to them? They're a ton of fun, and you see a whole bunch of people that you may not know. And again, industry conferences do this when customers and prospects and vendors come, and certainly those have their place. But what we want to talk about is thinking and leading differently. What if you were able to get fewer but more intimate relationships in that room? What if you tightened the aperture of not just your ideal customer profile, which Jenn and I talk a lot about, but your ideal relationship profile of clients and partners and friends of the company? We believe that intimacy, that really tightened aperture, that tightened focus can make a huge difference. Jenn, your thoughts before we kick this off?
Yeah, I think just changing the way companies and teams approach events as a touch point within the funnel and to, as you said, deepen that relationship really can drive the impact that they're trying to get and the results they're trying to get with faster deal times or deal value, things like that. And so just changing why they're doing events may actually help them generate better results.
And again, we'll talk about, again, multimodality, multi-touch points, kind of finding opportunities to be top of mind and really engaging that target audience to make sure your message and your unique value resonates. And we still continue to see a lot of organizations confuse vibration with forward motion. Let's generate a whole bunch of noise and a whole bunch of activities, and yet it just gets lost. It gets lost in all that noise. So we're going to start with a couple of fundamentals and some of, if you will indulge us, kind of some philosophical things that we deeply believe in, one of which is every organization right now is trying to deepen their relationships and the impact from those relationships. So if you think about whether it's a transactional sale and you want to sell me a product or service, or ideally in the subscription economy, that recurring revenue model, where it's not just a one-time sale, but you ideally want to come back and get not just renewal, but a longer term or a deeper portfolio approach. Deepening that relationship for phenomenal results is what we believe, what we're experiencing to be a big focus of every organization. And Jenn, this is a big part of obviously our customer lifecycle maturity model, where we talk a lot about the relationship really starts after they buy. So for our audience members who haven't seen this, take them through the kind of the 7 key steps that we are big advocates of.
Sure. So for those who can't see the screen, what we're showing is our infinity loop that has the various stages that a customer goes through as they engage with your company. So on the left side is more focused on the marketing and sales motions. So the awareness, the engagement, the evaluation, especially if you're a product-led growth company. And then the middle point is purchase. And so the deal cycle, actually signing the contract. And then the right side of the infinity loop is really focused on the customer success, the enablement, the implementation, and really creating the value that you've promised on the left side and getting traction and then creating raving fans. And so each one of these steps along the journey really needs to be intentional, and the handoff from one to the next also needs to be planned. And like a relay race, if you miss it, then you're going to drop the baton and the customer is going to have a disjointed experience. But if you overlap, then you may be sending too many messages or mixed messages. So really being crisp in how you plan out a customer's journey through the path or through your company is really going to be important.
And to build on that, we're trying to get beyond. We ask most executives, and we have a global research project going on right now of asking, where do you perceive in this infinity loop to be organizations' strengths, and where are you challenged, and how confident are you in rest of your team kind of advocating the same? If you think about those questions, they're all at the moment qualitative. Just your intuition, your perceptions, your observations. We've partnered with a great firm called Versalytics in building a scorecard to supplement that qualitative insights with a set of quantitative. How do we measure? How do we, not just in a descriptive approach, but also hopefully a prescriptive approach, really think about what we do and how we do it? So this idea of micro events, we believe, are as relevant on the left-hand side with the sales and marketing as you go to market, as the title conveys, but also incredibly valuable on the right-hand side. Because again, this is a big reason why many organizations do user conferences and user groups. And by the way, what better marketing than a word of mouth by an existing customer, existing relationship who raves about you, of what a fantastic opportunity they had to impact their business through your product, your solution, the relationship they have with you. So this idea of micro events are equally valuable on both sides of this formula. We want to really emphasize this idea of thinking and leading differently as we talk about the finger on the pulse of executives. So PwC does an annual global CEO survey. And as you can see on the screen, they interviewed 4,400 chief executives for the most recent one. And a big push was you have to evolve. They have to reinvent their businesses. And yet a big concern has continuously been threats to the top line. And, where's that revenue going to come from? And pressure, ongoing continued pressure on delivering top line results. Here's something that Jenn and I found fascinating, which is 40% of global CEOs, this particular survey, and McKinsey does something similar. We've seen things from BCG and Bain as well, that most global CEOs don't believe their businesses will be economically viable in the next decade if they continue the current path. So if your organization is going to market in a single motion, single approach, or just even a couple different ones, unless you begin to think and lead differently, and that's really what we're going to talk about when we're talking about micro events, you're going to struggle to remain relevant. Jenn, thoughts on this? How many organizations do we see that are doing the same thing and are expecting different results?
Too many to count, really. And it's those visionary and innovative leaders that really are going to change the game. And it's the people that are entering the market with seemingly normal, I guess, approaches, but the way they approach their business is really disruptive to how business gets done. And it's just because they're finding a better way to build that mousetrap. And it's those people that are disrupting the Adobes or the Microsofts of the world. And it's just because they're taking a different creative lens to how to do that better.
And again, this survey was fascinating to us as we look at the biggest challenges they see changing customer demands and preferences, regulatory evolution, labor or skill shortages. You got technology disruptors. Again, I've been to a handful of events in the last week alone where generative AI has been very topical. So supply chain, transition to new energy sources, new entrants in the industry or adjacent kind of industries. Imagine trying to put on a single event, a single type of a customer event, a single customer event period, and addressing all these. They would be drinking from the fire hose. I mean, it wouldn't, they would leave with eyes rolled over just because it becomes too much. So again, the seed that Jen and I really want to plant for you to think about, and this is not a one size fits all. This absolutely should be a discovery journey for you to think about how do we tighten the aperture? How do we nurture deeper, more meaningful relationships with stakeholders who are critical to our success? And how do we focus the message? How do we focus the conversation? How do we not, the old adage, I'm dating myself, used to be spray and pray. Right? Let me just share a whole bunch of stuff with a whole bunch of people and just see what sticks on the wall. And in 2023 and beyond, we think that's a wasted time, wasted effort, wasted resources, wasted opportunity to really deepen those relationships, and hence the opportunity for really micro events. Jen, comments on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that first line on here, the changing customer demands and preferences, there was a stat a couple of years ago that customers do 70% of their research before they ever actually talk to somebody at your company. So what information is out there about your company? How is that conversation being perceived by those prospects? And what light is that putting your company in? And are you part of that conversation? And so making sure that the information that's out there is accurate for one, but for two, provides value to the customer, even if it's not necessarily your solution, but helping them solve their problem and be better because of information your company may have put out is really the end goal. And they'll remember that. And they may not buy today, they may buy tomorrow or at their next company, but making sure that every touch point provides value really needs to be the impetus of why you do things instead of just to do things and create some of that noise that you mentioned earlier, David.
And again, fine line for every team, every organization to, and we often talk about this, including our own world, by the way. How do we manage our present while we invent our future? How do we run our current business while we kind of rework the business, our business of the future? Which is, the next point of conversation on where are CEOs, where are executives investing? We see a lot of in automation of processes and systems. So Jen's work on really digital advisory fits in that, in revenue operations, that smack fits in that. Upskilling the company's workforce, huge in priority areas. Our leadership development programs, there's a lot of interest in those because we're taking critical roles, key roles, and really upskilling, really, leveling up their business acumen, their broader sense of really seeing the broader landscape, deploying technology. Again, Jen, I'm a little jealous that 2 of the top 3 are in your bucket, but it lends itself really nicely to the evolution of the business. So again, if this is what they're interested in, if this is what the executives want to do and really convey how the organization is remaining relevant, we believe a tighter focus on gathering people will make a lot more sense. Jen, comment on this?
Well, just to touch on your comment about technology being 2 of the top 3 here. In the past, a lot of times technology was seen as a solution. We have X problem, just plug this thing in and it'll solve it for us. And that really created disjointed, or what I call digital duct taped tech stacks. And nothing really talked to each other. You created data silos and all sorts of things, and problems have just been compounded as time has gone on and more technologies, the company has grown, different demands are being made of the tech stack. And so that automating processes and systems is really, again, reinventing or changing the way that the technology is leveraged to actually enable your teams better versus forcing your teams to conform to a technology. So it's kind of flipping it on its head and making that technology work better for the people versus the people having to fit what the technology has been built to do.
So it's very easy to, again, as we talk about technology and automation, automating processes, it's very easy to start asking, do the relationships still matter? If I can get a whole lot done through connectivity, through connected systems, through processes, do the relationships still matter? And our answer is unequivocally yes. So all of our research shows that relationships are a strategic enabler of enterprise growth. And beyond table stakes, you have contacts, right? Deepening those, really understanding that client's unique business, their focus. A good friend, Eric McCarthy, talks about your customers' customers. How well do you understand them, their needs, their changing behaviors, their changing attitudes? So every facet, every part of our research, again, this was another CEO survey that says driving growth in the next several years. McKinsey talks about experience-led growth, which lends itself really nicely to these micro events. Jenn's whole practice and focus on, again, the RevOps. People who invest in marketing technology, sales technology, customer success technology are looking to deepen the relationship, are looking to really create alignment in the relationship. And we believe this idea of micro events throughout the year, and we'll talk more about those in a second, will be invaluable in conveying that key message, in reinforcing it, not repetitive, but reinforcing it through those actions. By the way, they become less of a production. They become less of a massive uptick in resources and administrative. And if you really put the right formula together for these micro events. Jenn, comments on this?
Well, just to the relationships still mattering. I mean, within a team that has to execute these micro events or experiences, or even just day-to-day running of the business, understanding what those other functions are doing is really important, and creating those feedback loops, because everybody has a different lens on the customer or the prospect. And sharing that information allows the company as a whole to anticipate what it is that customer may need, or the problems that they may be having. And it also helps kind of steer that product roadmap, if you will, of this is how customers are using our solution. There's a big gap between what they're needing to do and what we still do. And so it creates that conversation and that connectivity between all of the various different departments.
And that those conversations, that connectivity lends to this idea of relationships fueling intelligent and profitable growth is as relevant if you're expanding, if you're integrating and optimizing, or you're transforming the business model. So specific to micro events as a really enabler of your go-to-market strategy, the go-to-market partners have done a really interesting kind of visual layout of this, of you have options. And most CMOs, most CROs are right now thinking about every one of these opportunities. Do we have inbound led? Do we have outbound led? Do we have product led? Are we really leveraging our channels to kind of lead some of that? Events, specifically, we like micro events. How about community? How about an ecosystem where we integrate into a broader? So those 7, I don't want to say are magical, mystical, but it's a really good ingredient to ensure that you're not just thinking about them, not just building them, but you're prioritizing them, and you're thinking about the right growth levers for the right reasons. And you can see on the right-hand side, execution. Again, most organizations need a new idea, like they need a hole in their head. What they need is, how do we focus on fewer things, but really execute those exceptionally well? And we're in discussions with a couple clients about a series of road shows later this year. So we've identified, say, 8 or 9 or 10 key markets. And instead of, trying to put on a massive event, what if we went to these markets and one of them is in the fintech world and we got 50 CFOs. They work with the office of the CFO. We got 50 CFOs in each of these major markets, mid-market. And it reiterates, again, philosophically, we've always believed people fundamentally gather for two reasons: content and community. What can I learn that I wouldn't otherwise? And who else can I meet? How else can I improve my network? How else can I meet other interesting people that might be struggling with very similar issues? What they don't want to come to is a pitch fest. So unless you're a professional baseball team, stop pitching, because they don't want to see, let me tell you how great we are. They want to hear who else is having my kind of problems, my kind of issues. Do you get me? Do you get my challenges? Do you fundamentally understand what I need from a really credible, non-salesy point of view that then I can relate to and I can see others can relate to? Jenn, comments on this?
Well, the left-hand chart really just sort of drives home that there's a lot of stuff that are happening with marketing, sales, customer success teams. And one of the biggest things that we see with our clients that they struggle with is actually connecting all those dots together. They do a lot of them as, well, kind of point solutions. They do an inbound thing because they're trying to generate leads. They do an outbound thing because they're trying to do ABM. They have a community that they're trying to keep engaged, but they don't actually look at the holistic impact that tying those things together could have. And so to your point of like focusing on maybe their target audience or that ideal customer relationship and actually being intentional about, well, if they're in this stage of their journey, they should be marketed this type of event. And if they're deeper in their journey or they know more about what we do and the problems that they have, maybe this type of event, a different type of event is more impactful. And so really looking at all of these things on the left and fitting the right one in at the right time is really where companies will find the value. And right now I'm just seeing it kind of scattershot still, that they're doing all the things and thinking that they're going to get traction in that way.
The other thing I appreciated about that mix, the right mix of the 7 types of go-to-market motions, specifically with the event-led growth or these micro events, are the data on the right. So fascinating set of metrics. And I've always believed nobody puts on events because they're bored, right? I've always believed there's a certain objectives they're after. There's certain business outcomes they're after. And as you can see, when 70% of the event attendees rate the event, give you feedback, when you get a dramatically increased awareness, when you get, the quality of those conversations and subsequently leads, that these are people raising their hands and saying, I'm interested in this topic. I have this issue. I'm exploring options to address it. Any number of those or make you that much more relevant, make your solution that much more viable. By the way, I don't, and again, there's places for trade shows and, I'm dating myself. I've been going to these things since the 1980s. And my feet always hurt because I stand in the booth all day and it doesn't end when the booth ends. Then you got to go dinners and drinking and afterwards and Vegas and Orlando and a lot of great places. But the point is, I don't want to go just exclusively compete with 5,000 other people that are on that trade show floor. So when we say micro events, what if you were the only person at that ball? What if you're the only? It's a very focused effort. And again, several times I've done this with others. We've done this with others. They come for the content. They stay for the community. Their content has got to be independent. The content has got to be insightful. The content is ideally thought or practice leadership. The content is from different sources and perspectives. The content is ideally thought-provoking. It incites self-awareness and really kind of introspection. You do that, and the environment's got to be nice and comfortable, never expensive, but comfortable and non-pressure. Nobody wants to go to a scratch that. Very few people want to go to a timeshare presentation. So don't do that. Create conversations, create discussions, create real value that they feel like their time was well spent on that micro event. Another data point, Jen, you've heard me talk to clients about this. Some of your best prospective clients, I believe, are relationships of some of your existing clients. These people all know each other, CFOs, CISOs, you name it. They know each other, facility managers. Every industry we've ever worked in seems to be very incestuous. People know each other. They've been around the industry for years. So what if they invited some of their colleagues in other companies and their peers? And hey, do you know about this breakfast and session in the morning? Do you know about this reception and dinner event? Hey, why don't you come with me? Misery likes company. Let's go together, right? So it becomes a phenomenal opportunity to really focus the conversation, focus the discussion.
Well, and also on that note, like in your example with the trade shows, incorporating an event-led growth type valuable micro event can actually be really impactful at those. So think of your trade show booth as air cover. And that booth is for people who aren't necessarily aware of who you are and what you do. And it is for those demos, that quick and dirty. And it's a numbers game. But then from that, there's a lot of times those partner dinners or events where a company we worked with in the past, they had a Top Golf event. They and one of their channel partners teamed up, and they actually invited people to an evening of Top Golf. And it was really just socializing, but it was that target audience of who they were trying to talk to, who are the people who actually see value in their solution. They had both customers and prospects there. And it was a very social type gathering. And then beyond that, they then had smaller, more intimate gatherings where it was actually their customer success function driving sort of a training and enablement session that was by invite only, but they really targeted who they wanted in that room. But it was all one event over 1 week. And so they leveraged the different pieces in a really strategic way to find the value from that larger expense.
Yeah, and again, we're not advocating, and I hope the audience hears this, of not doing trade shows, right? They're great, as Jen mentioned, they're great air cover. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people notice who's not at the event, right? That raises concerns of, if you're a player, if you want to be a player in that space, why wouldn't you be there? What we're advocating is almost this notion of, sponsoring that trade show. You get leads, marketing teams are involved. You got to do campaigns. There's random content. You got a massive audience from your total addressable market at that event. And the goal is to get a meeting to now owning the event, creating unbelievable level of engagement. You've got your whole go-to-market team. It's consistent with your go-to-market strategy. You bring a point of view. You bring a perspective. You challenge their assumptions. There's a whole Harvard Business Review issue that talked about provoking your customers, not in a flip way, but really help them think differently. You've got a very targeted audience, which is your target. We did a session previous episode on this. It's your total relevant market. You're not trying to date everybody. It becomes very focused on who are the best, most ideal relationships for you to engage. And by the way, again, these people have raised their hand. They're considerably further down that process of, we have this problem. Yours could be a viable solution. Let's gather the information, the insights, validation that we need to make a decision and really move forward with really solving that challenge or opportunity. Jen, comments on this? Anything to add? Again, not either or, but really combining the big events with potentially more micro event type opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a combination strategy, and shifting from the left to the right, just doing events to do events or going to those large trade shows versus having that very targeted, relevant market and audience there, you'll see a dramatic increase in pipeline velocity, value, faster close times, things like that, just because you've got the right people in the room. You're not, to your point, you're not dating everybody. You're not talking to everybody. It's not a spray and pray approach. You're being very intentional with what you're doing, how you're doing it, because those people have raised their hand. They are interested. They see value in your solution, and you're continuing to provide them value because they see themselves in the solution that you present.
Yep, that's exactly right. Which again, if you think about now, so if you've bought in on this idea that micro events could be really strategic in what you're trying to do, what we're seeing is almost like a maturity level. It's almost like a spectrum, if you will. So, and again, this isn't going to be earth shattering, but if you think of just 4 simple levels, level 1, the goal is we just want to generate leads. So you do registration and attendees lists, and you could do webinars. You could do, again, trade show booth we talked about. And typically the marketing team is leading that. Jen, you want to take the second one?
Yeah, the second one is really trying to drive those meetings. It's your strategic account leaders trying to book meetings, create opportunities. That too can be done through webinars and trade shows. And that's really involving marketing and sales, marketing more driving it, sales then executing it.
Next one is level 3, which I want to get buy-in. This might be more intellectual, might be more philosophical, might be a very different approach to solving a problem. So it's about movement followers. Like who this is the layman's term for this is who gets me. Who are our kind of people? Who's our tribe? Maybe not quite tattooing our logo on their arm or chest, but it's a right audience. There's an opportunity. You typically benefit from pipeline velocity, or you're looking to move that along. It really is potential a lot of times about product adoption. You see a lot of this in physical product companies of, they're using our controllers, or let me show how they can accelerate how they do with this widget that we've created. And the goal is, how do we really create greater engagement, greater buy-in in that momentum, in that movement? It's typically virtual, although increasingly it's more in person. It's very much branded. You're going to an event where there's a step and repeat, or what we would do in a trade show booth is just branded for us. It is now sales, it's marketing, customer success a lot of times is brought in to share case studies, examples, and the product people, because they can both articulate where the product is today, but also the roadmap they may have in mind in where the next iteration of that valve or that SaaS product or that pump or any of those things are headed.
And then the last one, this is kind of the maturity of companies that have found their product market fit, their platform, their audience, and it's really trying to drive that decision. So it's looking to close win business, it's looking to retain customers, and really just trying to drive home what it is that they do and why they are the right choice. And so with this, you're pulling in everybody. All the troops are coming. So it's sales, marketing, customer success. It's your product team. A lot of times it's the executives for sales or marketing. You'll also usually pull in customers. And so those customers that have gotten value from your solution, they'll be brought in. So customer advisory board, your customer evangelists, those sort of people are then brought in to advocate kind of on your behalf and drive that decision from other people.
And I'm always a big fan of alphabet soup. So for our audience, if you're looking at the screen, GRR, Jen?
Gross retention rate.
Right? See, this is the test. One word response. Okay. NRR?
Net retention rate.
There you go. So the maturity really comes in. We've gotten traction. So gross is starting kind of the process. Level 4 is we've got some success. We want to really highlight that success. I want to work as much on retention and really, if I have to constantly replace my customer base, that's going to be a pretty expensive, go-to-market strategy and forget acquisition. The retention costs are going to go through the roof. Whereas net retention, I can now point to very definitive areas where we've been really successful in conveying the real value that we bring to the table. So again, ideas, perspectives on maturity of those events. You also think about engagement signal versus business outcomes. This is another chart that we like a lot, where bottom left to the right and bottom left up. The business outcomes, the higher the outcome, right? The higher the level of engagement. Whereas as a lead, sure, I'm happy to give you my name and email address. A meeting, whoa. That's a little more of it's a little more intimate. It's a little more of my time. Buy-in, you better be good. You better have done your homework. You better make it relevant. You better convey that. This will come as a complete shock to Jenn. I'm dating myself. Years ago, I was on my school's debate team, and we had to argue both pros and cons, right? So if you want buy-in, you better have done your homework and come with a pretty compelling case of why we should go in this direction. That's when you get buy-in from me. You want decision, I need to see proof. I need to see social proof. I need to see ROI. I need to see who else has had the problem that I'm struggling with that your solution potentially solves. Comment on this?
Well, looking at this chart, I mean, it's going up, like it's a upward arrow, but it also then lends itself really well to sort of the marketing funnel. And a lot of times people think of a marketing funnel as people fall into it and then move through it, where it's really actually should be shaped as a marketing pyramid, because every step along it is a micro yes. You're trying to get them to the macro yeses that you want them to buy from you. But every single interaction is a micro yes, saying, yes, I'm going to continue this journey with you. And there's that level of intimacy that you mentioned as they move through this. When they're just attending a webinar, you need to make it pretty frictionless for them and not ask a ton of information, because they don't know you. They don't know if they can trust you or any of that. So name and email address is about as much as you're going to get from that. But then as they move through and as they consume more of your content or attend more of your events, you can ask deeper and deeper questions, because they're showing their interest. And it's those engagement signals that you really need to be listening for. And so Dr. Flint McLaughlin, he runs a company out of Florida called Marketing Sherpa. He actually talks this algorithm that shows the number of fields on a form and the cost value to it. So if the person perceives the value of what they're getting by filling out this form is really high, the more intimate the information they're willing to give you. So for example, if you're asking me for my social security number, it's going to be for a loan or a car or a house or something like that. It better not be for a white paper. But like, if you're asking for my phone number, a lot of times people are apprehensive to give anybody a phone number on a form, because they know they're going to then get bombarded by a whole bunch of phone calls. So it's really balancing the information you ask for with the information and the value that you're going to be delivering to them. And as they get deeper, and as you can see on this chart, as they move up on this pyramid of maturity, then you really can start asking those more in-depth type questions.
And I'm also, again, I love that comment of you don't need to talk to my third grade teacher if you want me to download a position paper, right? Some organizations just go ridiculous with their forms. I'm reminded of what again, I tend to take the macro view of a mentor drove into me. Remember information for people, not about them. If you remember information for people, whether they register for an event, participate in dialogue, talk to a sale or customer success, learn from a customer, that information is for their benefit. When you remember information about people, it's for your benefit, to spam them. And increasingly, I think people are going to disengage. So asking the right amount of information at the right time becomes critical in earning that trust, in earning that you're not going to sell or massively distribute my content. The other thing, Jenn, I don't know about you, I appreciate boxes that when I go to register, it says, I give you permission to share my stuff with your partners, or no, I don't. Now, some of it is very presumptuous. They automatically fill it out for you, and I uncheck them. But it's still a nice gesture that says you're asking my permission to do that.
Well, and to take that one step further, it's also then the company holding to what that says. If you said no, don't accidentally lump you in with everybody else, and then you do get bombarded by all the other partners. So it's really respecting the choices that your customers are making, even if it's not the outcome that you're looking for. Maybe you're trying to gather 100 leads and you're wanting to share 100 leads with your partners and you only get 75. Cutting the corner and just sharing the whole list is not going to put you in the best light for your customers. And keeping your customers top of mind and remembering things for them versus about them is really going to put you in that better light.
So for our audience, what Jenn and I've been talking about is really a holistic view of kind of how you go to market, how you create real impact from your efforts. We call this your amplified time to impact process. Again, we can certainly parachute in the conversation anywhere along those 10 steps. And for those that are not watching, you're missing. If you don't watch our sessions, you miss out a lot. But everything from a baseline assessment of where your processes, where's your tech stack, where are your capabilities today, all the way to buyer profiles, needs, behaviors, the user journey, decision velocity. Why are people, macroeconomic issues and things you have no control over aside, why are people indecisive? Why are they dragging their feet? How can you better understand the best case scenarios, the worst case scenarios, onboarding and launch, right? Again, we're huge proponents of the relationship really starts after they buy. So tell me about your onboarding. Tell me how you'll create material impact in their business, which lends itself nicely to return on integration. I love the expression. Somebody else recently told me, we've bought too many appendage softwares, right? They've bought software that doesn't connect anything to anywhere. So as such, they're putting their foot down of no more. We're just not going to keep doing this. Raving fans. How do you create not just happy customers, not just customer advocates, but raving fans? If you've ever met someone who is a raving fan of a brand or an experience, or they won't stop talking about it. Let me tell you how great, in my case, motorcycle is, or Jenn's case, fishing. Let me tell you about the Loop. Jenn, tell me about Loop. It's this fabulous brand, and they do a great job, and because she's had a great experience with it. And that's what you want for your product, your service. From there, improving and optimizing what we do and how we do it. Scaling, breadth and depth. You want to really build this out? What is it going to take to serve 5 customers versus 500 or 5,000 customers? And then really elevating this, amplifying this globally. Jenn, comments on this before I show our scorecard?
Just to your point that every company can focus on each one of these individually, but really what elevates the go-to-market function and the driving the most impact for an organization is really starting at 1 and moving to 10, because number 1 and 2 really set that foundation that you can build from. Because if you don't have a solid foundation, by the time you get down to 9, which is scale, breadth, and depth, you're then going to be building basically on a house of cards, and it's not going to serve you well to have to take 3 steps backwards just to move forward 1 step. And so focus on any one of these is great because it'll elevate your business as a whole. But if you focus on starting at 1 and move to 10, it'll actually dramatically improve your business.
And again, beyond our opinions or beyond our experiences and the qualitative perspectives, as I mentioned, we're also really excited about our partnership with Versalytics to bring a scorecard to this, to not just give you a grade score, not just really analyze with data where you are on this journey, but in a prescriptive way. Here's what we need to go double down. Here's where we drive operational efficiency and effectiveness and impact in our go-to-market motions when we do these things, and we do them really, really well. So on that note, I couldn't be more proud of 20 plus years of colleagues and phenomenal clients, and the opportunity to speak about these topics and create salons and strategy visualization with Lynn Wilson, our creative director, point solutions, coaching and development, and really the relationship-centric part of M&A. Jenn, you've equally have created a great portfolio of our RevOps capabilities.
Yeah, just elevating the people, processes, and the technologies that everybody's leveraging within their day-to-day businesses has really been a passion of mine. And I've always been one that wants to have tech enable the people process. And so finding creative ways to leverage the technologies that already exist or plug in better solutions has always been really passionate of mine. And so we can start with anything from just an x-ray, where it's a very quick cursory review and give you some things to focus on that your internal team can work on improving, all the way through helping with an M&A integration, because nobody needs 2 instances of Salesforce, and making sure that there's no data loss there. But then also to manage services. We have had several clients just outsource their entire operations function to my team because they don't have the internal capabilities or even time to manage those things. And so it's leveraging the wealth of knowledge that my team has brought to really amplify what they're doing and how they're doing it.
So again, we hope we deeply believe in this idea of micro events. We've seen it firsthand. We're doing some ourselves. We believe they can be an enormous enabler of your go-to-market motions, your go-to-market strategy. As mentioned, there's value in trade shows. There's value in really being involved in the industry and being a pillar, if not a strong advocate of the industry. There's also, we believe, huge opportunities for these micro events, for this event-led growth that you own, you brand, you bring like-minded professionals together, like-minded, ideal, I want to reiterate this, not just ideal customer profiles, but also ideal relationship profiles together to really share their experiences, to really share their perspectives, to really share what they're struggling with, what their challenges are, what their opportunities are. You saw the list of, and we continue to talk to clients and hear the challenges they're facing and opportunities. I don't believe everybody's damaged, but challenges and opportunities. And we think that's very difficult to do with a broad brushstroke, where it's much more laser focused. It is led with thought leadership. It is led with practice leadership. Again, years ago, I went in with HP, Microsoft, and Intel, and we went to multiple cities, and they brought CIOs in to hear Casey Choi, at that time HP's chief architect, talk about decentralizing their tech infrastructure. Bob Melk was at that time CEO, the editor of CIO magazine. He talked about the evolution of the CIO role, and I spoke about relationship economics and how the technology function has an enormous opportunity to become a business enabler, not a business inhibitor. And it was phenomenal success. End of the campaign, those 3 organizations that went in together, it really deepened their relationship with roughly 500 C-suite executives across the country. So, and again, we're talking to a couple of other folks about doing a similar roadshow later this year. Imagine the relationships. Imagine the learning opportunities from and there's enormous amount of wisdom in most of these rooms. Imagine listening more intently, listening louder to their concerns, and the opportunity to deepen the relationship, have the right people in the room that raise their hand and say, this in fact is a challenge or an opportunity. And then really taking it from there to whether it's net new retention, net new revenue growth opportunities, but also kind of ongoing repeat business. We believe these micro events can be invaluable. Jenn, I'm going to give you the final thought, because before I remind our audience of some of the upcoming gatherings.
Yeah, I would just say that the micro events just ensure that you're trying to drive the right outcome and that you're going into it with a value-driven purpose. And these are not opportunities to pitch. So to your point earlier in our talk today, these aren't pitch sessions. Nobody wants to come and hear you pitch things. And so really ensure that these events that you're putting on are providing value, and you put yourself in that ideal customer's shoes, and that you're identifying a problem that they may be having or feeling, and then providing some level of a solution, either your solution or thought leadership within the industry, that you're just bringing this knowledge to them, and you're being an enabler and a facilitator of that wealth of knowledge that's out there. So really focus on the purpose of why you're doing these events, and you'll find the most value from them.
If you haven't caught it, a underlying theme in this conversation about relationships has been, continues to be, will always, I believe, will be one of trust. So really excited. The next several episode, Lisa Campbell from One Trust is going to join us for the next episode focused on the trust operating system. Fascinated by that topic. Jenn and I, one of the more interesting episodes we've done was on mergers and acquisitions. And we're going to go deeper in that topic and talk about the idea of before, during, and after. As Jenn mentioned, nobody needs two instances of Salesforce. So how do you begin to start integrating your processes, your capabilities, and your tech stack? And then really excited, second week of August, Clark Dean, a friend at Transwestern, is going to join us and talk about the neuroscience of relationships and physical proximity. So those are at least our next three. We hope you'll continue to come back, and we're going to share these on, again, various social platforms. They'll always be here in our YouTube channel, but we hope you'll come back and not just join us live Tuesdays at noon Eastern, 11 Central, 10 Mountain, 9 Pacific, as well as wherever you consume podcasts. We repurpose these into podcasts. If you just search Intelligent Growth, you'll see our pictures, the blue tile. And again, we hope you'll subscribe and be notified of the future episodes. On behalf of my partner, Jenn Cordz, thanks for joining us for Intelligent Growth, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody. All the best. Bye-bye.